Hey, listen, welcome to Rauta's Black Metal Reviews. This time we go to Greece, one of the most, unique scenes in the world of black metal, and also one of the oldest scenes when it comes to black metal. After all, a lot of Greek bands existed before the so-called Nordic wave really made those waves and albums and brought the bands with them. Now, Yoth Iria might be, as a band of new school of Greek black metal, but these guys go way back all the way to the 80s with their given respective bands back in the days. So what is this all about? Well, first of all, this is a band that made to my very best of the list when they made this their first EP a few years ago, Under His Way, and okay, this is a little bit stuck here, so I'm not gonna remove it, but I'll show you the CD and booklet and anything included nonetheless. So as I was saying, when they released their MCD or EP back in the days, a few years ago, that made to my very best list of the given year as the best release. And ever since, of course, I've been following the band curiously. I got to witness them live here in my home city a couple of years ago. I got to interview Jim Mutilator, the bass player and original member, founder of the band, when they played here. Really a nice gentleman and, of course, a great live performer as well. Now, live setup was a little bit different than the one on the albums and all, because what I've been told, the vocalist himself, also a veteran of the Greek scene, isn't really interested in, I guess, flying or doing gigs, both, or at least one of the cases here. So whatever the reason is, you don't necessarily see this band live as it is on the album. But anyway, so I was, very enthusiastic about this very first release when it came out a few years ago, and when the first album came out a couple of years later, a year later, As the Flame Withers, the debut album, I was blown away. Well, Under His Way from 2020 is still my favorite from this band, but that doesn't mean that As the Flame Withers, the debut album, or this one, Blazing Inferno, the second album, are far away from that. Quite the contrary, these are very close to each other, and it's just fantastic how, well these songs are, how well they are being, written, how much certain kind of a feeling, atmosphere they are included. Just mind-blowing, really. So what is worth mentioning here when we take a look at this, the list, obviously the lineup has changed since the first one. When I was talking about the lineup, I was referring to the previous members, and this is the Magus from 2019 to 2023. And he's, of course, known for his work with, Rodenkreis, Semial, Necromantia, and beyond. So a very veteran man of the game. But things have changed. So a lot of these members who were in the band previously have now changed to the current lineup. And now the new vocalist is just called he. What is here mentioned as Rustam Shashikaranov from Russia. This is pretty interesting. She has quite a bit of a history with different kind of bands, but not something that you might necessarily expect from a Greek band, especially with such a history. And as you can see here, a lot of people have changed since earlier. Tim Mutilator is the only original member of the band, and I think that's part of the deal here, being songwriting and all. But even though a lot of people will say, yeah, it's bass players don't write that much music, but we all know it's not really true. Anyway, so as I was saying, Under His Way made a big impact on me in 2020, and that was followed by As the Flame Withers, a great debut album 2021. So because of lineups changes and all that stuff, people might be expecting now something must be really different with Blazing Inferno, but not really. And this is for the good of us, the fans, really. So Blazing Inferno continues the very same path that the previous album already paved for. This is about 36 minutes of kind of a traditional, I would call it second wave black metal, because this doesn't really have so much to do with the early 80s years and all that stuff. But then again, this doesn't really sound like your typical modern day black metal bands. It sounds very Greek. And this is of course a good thing if you like Greek black metal, be it Varadron, Rotting Christ, Zemial, Kabir, and all that stuff. It's very melodic, it's very atmospheric, and sometimes it can be actually quite uplifting considering comparing to, a lot of Nordic bands, the more kind of darker and sinister and evil sounding bands. Greek bands tend to have their own unique flavor, and I would like to kind of compare it to the climate, really. What we have here in the Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, Norway, we are coming up with this, cold atmosphere. Summers are short and sweet, and the rest of the time we either get, the moisture, the wet, the cold, lots of snow and all that stuff, lots of darkness. And that is then again kind of seeping through to the music. Where it goes for Greek, people living in Mediterranean Sea having a fantastic history with, philosophy and lots of inventions and a lot of wars included, but also like very, very nice people. The nicest people I've ever met are the Greek ones. They have good food, they have a good climate, they have beautiful islands and all that stuff. I guess in a way that also seeps into the music. So it's very different from and unique from, the Nordic and a lot of other European countries. And that's part of the charm why the Greek kind of black metal is so interesting and good also. And Yoth Iria is, my opinion, the big pan in the Greek scene at the moment. While there are bands like Rotting Christ who have been doing their music all the way since the late 80s. And Jim Mutilator, the bass player and the founder of, Yoth Iria, was part of that back in the days, as well as the Magus. These elements are being kind of taken to Yoth Iria, but also, in a way, taken to a new level, taken to a different direction than Rotting Christ. Rotting Christ maybe went a little bit more softer and gothic directions along the way after the first initial releases. Whereas Yoth Iria is almost like going back to the same roots where Rotting Christ was coming. So not exactly raw end of black metal, but kind of still going back to those days when things were just shaping up, becoming what is nowadays known as, the Greek black metal. So a lot of these similar melodies, which is why I'm explaining the past and the history and all, are still here with Yoth Iria. There are moments when it gets really like strong in atmosphere, as if you get just take a knife and cut pieces out of it. It's almost tangible. And that's part of the charm why I really love it. At the same time, it's a very warm-hearted. I mean, like not uplifting and happy music, but there's something very warm with the music. And I really, really like it. And then again, when we're talking about the certain kind of darker aspects, they are still within there. Not necessarily as sinister and evil sounding like a lot of those Nordic bands back in the, early 90s. Think about the Mayhem, debut album, or Emperor for that matter, or, albums like the early Darkthrone ones. There's nothing like that with this one, but at the same time you kind of feel it goes to the same box, just in a little bit a different compartment. So whereas in a lot of ways you would put Nordic bands a little bit different places in the given box known as black metal, second wave, Yoth Iria belongs to the same box but just in a different place. And this album is beautifully crafted. I gave this quite a few spins and I'm still yearning for more. There are lots of melodies which are really, really great stuff. And when it comes to the production and the vocals, they're not the rawest out there. But then again, it wouldn't really fit this one. This is more about the softer side, the kind of easier to approach with the melodic sense, with the atmosphere and everything. But everything makes sense. There are moments when you feel this is kind of a growing to some epic proportions. In a way, like if Greek people were making, Bloodfire Death by Bathory. So certain kind of epicness is definitely right there. Their talks, the lyrics, some of them mention demons and angels and all the heavenly battles, whatever. And that is kind of taking me back at the same time to the 90s, as well as to the mindset of more fantastical things rather than everyday nihilism and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a romantic person. I kind of go for the more necrotic things and nihilistic things and more down to earth. But at the same time, the personality in me who is very, very much into the darker aspects of, the fantasy and references to biblical proportions and stories of creations and apocalypse and all. At the same time, this pushes the right buttons. So all I'm saying is, this is a beautifully crafted recording. It's not too lengthy. It's just, in and out in less than 40 minutes. And throughout those 8 tracks, you're like, man, this is so good. I'm going to give it another spin. And that's not something that you say about most of the albums. At least I won't. So once again, Yoth Iria is nailing it. So far, in my opinion, they have kind of a flawless track record so far. The discography is just beautiful. It's catchy. It's memorable. It's touching. Can't really get that much further than that. So definitely this album goes among my favorite albums of year 2024, and I'm doing this before the end of October, so there is a couple of months still to challenge this, but so far definitely going in my top 10 or even top 5 list of the given year. What will be there, as album of the year in the end of year 2024, that remains to be seen, but this is something you don't want to miss, at least if you have any love for Greek black metal in general. So listen to it, fall in love with it and all that stuff. This album is out in November 8th, 2024, so only a few days after this review comes out. Go check it out, and if you have the chance, if you have the possibility, go to see these guys live. Fantastic. Cherry over and out. Bye bye.